This is Halloween. I wanted to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day, and for all of the veterans out there, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for fighting for our freedoms. All of you veterans out there and those still serving, we appreciate you. And I don't think that you're told that enough. So happy Memorial Day to you. Today we will be visiting Sunnyside Cemetery. It's over here in Saint Petersburg, close to Leelman, and it is a beautiful cemetery that every time I drive by, I just think it's gorgeous. So I think you'll like it. It's going to be a short episode. It's just the one cemetery, just real quick this Sunday before Memorial Day, just for you guys. Enjoy. We're here in Saint Petersburg at the Sunnyside Cemetery. In my opinion, one of the prettiest cemeteries in St. Petersburg, if not the prettiest. A lot of beautiful headstones here, but this cemetery goes way back. Established in 1880 by a man named Nathaniel Ellis. He originally owned the land to be a private cemetery for his own family, and then the cemetery was actually purchased by John O'Barry in 1904, and that's when it was opened up as a public cemetery. But a lot of history in this little cemetery. We'll walk through and see what we can see. I used to live really close to this cemetery. It's very close to Leelman, the Leelman area of St. Petersburg. Leelman is right before Kenneth City. It always caught my attention just because of the beauty. There's a lot of shade trees. It's very well maintained. Beautiful grounds, the grass is kept, and a lot of very large marble ornate headstones. So it's a really cool one if you're just looking for something to do on a Saturday or a Sunday. You want to come for a walk in a nice scenic area. This is a great cemetery to do that. It's not super big, but there's a lot to see here, and I love it. Along the sides here, there are all these private niches for husbands and wives mostly. Just a very neat little setup here. And it's not even owned by a larger company like Dignity Memorial. This is actually owned by an Orlando company now, but it's gone through about 4 different owners since it was first established in 1880. I'm noticing that this is going to be one that there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff engraved on the headstones, like just different things that you kind of never see, sayings, scriptures, funny little anecdotes from when the departed was alive, just different things like that. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to check out. Very interesting and cool thing to do. Pretty clear that they can put anything you want on a headstone nowadays. I'm going to take some pictures of some really neat things that I saw, and not to disrespect any of the departed, just to show you how neat it is that families really put a lot of thought and effort into these headstones and make sure to include things that they loved in life. And I think that's just really cool. It's something that's quite new. Probably just in the last 20 years that people have been doing that, but I think it's a really neat way to commemorate the departed. And you're going to see a lot of that here. So something interesting you might want to know about this particular cemetery is that there's a legal battle currently happening regarding stipulations that the old owner, John O'Barry, had written into a contract when he sold the cemetery to Anderson McQueen in 1985. Anderson McQueen purchased the land and the cemetery and was in charge of it from 1985 all the way up until 2017, when it was purchased by the Orlando-based company. When the Orlando-based company purchased it, Anderson McQueen had kept true to all the contractual agreements that were in the original contract from John O'Barry. But when the Orlando-based company purchased it, they made changes. Specifically, one of the changes were that there was a gravel pathway to walk on. People are idiots. What's the point of that? Anyway, there was a gravel pathway in the shape of a horseshoe that was meant to always be there. In fact, it was in the original contract that not be messed with or changed in any way. And when the Orlando-based company purchased it, they did change it. They got rid of the pathway and they started making burials there. It actually made room for up to 124 burials when they did that. 82 of those plots were sold, and 24 of those plots are occupied now. So now there's this whole legal battle because they breached the contract that was originally set forth by John O'Barry, and basically they're in trouble because they're in breach of contract, and now they've had to notify those poor families that have buried their loved ones here at their loved ones' request and tell them, hey, are you in agreement to move your loved one's body to a different location? And of course they are not, because then, you know, they have to exhume the bodies and move them to a different location. They have to go through that whole pain of losing their loved one again, basically. Not to mention that their wishes aren't carried out anymore. So it's a whole battle going on right now. And there was just a service today. I'm hoping that they weren't buried in one of those spots, because they could too be part of that legal battle. But we just were waiting for the funeral procession to come to a close before we came over to this side, just out of respect for the family. And as you can see, they're wrapping up. And I just pray that it's not in one of those spots. So this lovely lady who is buried here is she is in one of the plots in question for that breach of contract, which was negligence on the part of the new owners, in my opinion. And I pray that justice for their family is served, because they should not be responsible for the negligence of the owners that were in clear breach of contract, you know, and have to exhume their loved ones, you know, because of their blatant negligence of a binding contract written back in the early 1900s by John O'Barry. The area I'm in right now is the historic area, and the area that was said to have extra space enough for 124 new burials. So they just breached that agreement, opened up the space to more burials, where 82 plots were sold and 24 of them now are occupied. So I just pray that, you know, they don't have to move their loved ones, and that their loved ones can stay here, and perhaps close it off to any future burials so as not to be in breach of the contract any further than they already have been. We found a Civil War vet buried here as well. Took a picture of it for you. Civil War veteran. Right back in this historical area. I just wanted to mention To anyone that's coming out and visiting cemeteries, if you like to do that sort of thing, look online. And there are rules actually to coming and visiting a cemetery. You know, what to do, what not to do in a cemetery. And I've noticed when I'm in a lot of historic areas in cemeteries, people have been bringing shaving cream and cleaning off so that they can read the headstone. Even rubbing of a headstone is not kosher. Eventually it breaks down the marble or the concrete or whatever the headstone is made of, and one day in the future, maybe not the near future, but maybe 100 years from now, it will no longer be engraved at all. So refrain from those sorts of practices if you are visiting cemeteries, because it is considered vandalism. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that that's considered vandalism, and maybe they're just doing it because they want to see their loved one's inscription in the tombstone. I totally get it, but it's going to do more harm than good. So make sure you're staying ethical in regards to common or ethical practices of the cemetery, and make sure you're being respectful to those whose loved ones are buried here or at any cemetery. Just wanted to mention that in passing. I have been to a lot of older cemeteries, and you can no longer read the inscriptions on the headstones, and it's probably from years of people rubbing them or bringing shaving cream to clean it off, and it really does damage that. And as well as, please, if you're bringing food to a cemetery, beers to have with your loved ones, clean up after yourself, because oftentimes, you know, it gets missed by the groundskeepers or whatever, and then there's just like some fast food sitting there, you know, fast food bags or cups or whatever. Just, that's great if you want to come have a picnic with your loved ones, but make sure you're cleaning up after yourself, because it leaves the cemetery looking trashy, and I know that you wouldn't want, you know, the cemetery looking trashy for your own loved ones. So just make sure that you're cleaning up after yourself. Just some rules of thumb for visiting cemeteries. And I'm headed out. Thank you for coming with me today. We're here at Moonlight Boba in Saint Petersburg. I'm gonna go in and get a bite to eat. Thank you so much for joining me again today. Like I said, this one was a short one. Sometimes the cemeteries aren't very big. It's going to be a short episode. Sometimes they're so big that I've got to cut parts out. So this was one of those instances where it was just a small cemetery with a bit of history, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share the video, and I'll see you next time.